Today we continue to listen Silavanta Sutta. According to Venerable Sariputra, when a virtuous and instructed bhikkhu carefully attends to 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruits of stream entry. This means that when a bhikkhu sees the 5 aggregates as impermanent, suffering and non-self and so on, it is possible that he will become a Sotapanna. In order to become a Sotapanna, what do we have to do? We have to observe the 5 aggregates of clinging as impermanence, as suffering, and as non-self. It is important that when we are practicing vipassana meditation, we see these 3 characteristics of the 5 aggregates of clinging that comprise mind and matter and all conditioned phenomena. So how yogi observe the 5 aggregates? Yogi know 4 foundations of mindfulness, 4 kinds of setting up of mindfulness. There are 4 kinds of setting up of mindfulness because there are 4 kinds of objects. First, we contemplate the body, contemplation of body, kaya or rupa. So sometimes body does not mean the whole physical body, but a group of some material properties. Breathing is also called the body. Different parts of the body are also called the body. So body, we must understand anything that is associated with the body. So according to the practice, we need to observe every bodily behavior, sitting, every standing, every walking, bending, stretching, rising and falling of the abdomen. And also when we observe, seeing, we note seeing, and you may capture the eye sensitivity and visible objects. And when you note hearing, when you observe hearing, you can capture sound wave and ear sensitivity. When you observe tasting, you can note, you can observe taste and tongue sensitivity, etc. So every bodily behavior, yogi need to observe. And then Vedana contemplation of feeling. Feeling is a mental state. Now we have pain here, physical pain, and we experience that physical pain with our mind. In our mind, there is a mental state called feeling. Since it is physical pain, the mental feeling is the painful feeling. When Buddha said, a monk contemplates feeling in the feeling, he means the monk is contemplating on that mental state and not necessarily on the pain there. In practice, when we have pain, we have to concentrate on the pain and be mindful of it, because that is practical. But actually, when we are making notes as pain, we are really making notes of the mental state that feels the pain in our body. When we contemplate the feeling, Vedana, do not identify this feeling with ourselves, regard them as feeling above from us. So we have to patiently note every arising feeling. So feeling come one after another, sometimes pleasant feeling, sometimes unpleasant feeling, and sometimes neutral feeling. And then contemplation of consciousness, citta nupassana. So citta, it is usually translated as mind. But consciousness is a better translation. So the Pali was citta means consciousness. In Abhidhamma, mind is composed of four things: Vedana, feeling; Sanya, perception; Sankhara, mental formation; Vijnana, consciousness. So what we call mind is a group of four things. Sometimes there may be confusion regarding these terms, mind and consciousness. Let's say mind is composed of two things. First, consciousness and mental state, mental factors, citta and cettasika. Consciousness is defined as awareness of an object. Here, awareness is not like awareness in the practice of meditation. It is just mere awareness. It is like I'm aware of someone there at the side, although I'm looking this way in front. This kind of awareness is called consciousness. So we need to understand that although we use the word consciousness for the word citta, it is not an exact translation of the word. Consciousness is defined as a mental state, which is the awareness of the object. Only when there is awareness of the object, there can be contact with the object, there can be feeling of the object, liking of the object, dislikings of the objects, and so on. So these mental states, contact, feeling, like, dislike, etc., are subordinate to consciousness. But they are also components of the mind. So mind is first divided into two, consciousness and mental factors. Contact, feeling, perception, attention, like, dislike, and so on are called mental factors. According to Abhidhamma, there are 52 mental factors. And these 52 are grouped into three: feeling, vedana, perception, sanya, and mental formation, sankhara. So when we add consciousness to these three, we get 4 kinds of mental states. It is amazing that fully enlightened Buddha could define and differentiate each of these mental states that arise simultaneously, taking the same object. So when we practice meditation, we say sad, sad. That means we have a consciousness accompanied by sorrow and something like that. It is contemplation on consciousness. When we say anger, anger, we are doing contemplation of consciousness accompanied by anger. So every mental state, every consciousness have to be noted and observed. As soon as we note seeing, there is seeing consciousness, you can capture it, and also observing consciousness, observing mind, you capture. When you hear hearing, when you hear something, you note hearing, and you can capture hearing consciousness and observing mind, momentarily appearance of that smelling consciousness, noting mind, tasting consciousness, noting mind, touching consciousness, noting mind, and thinking consciousness, and noting mind, they appear and disappear immediately. So yogi have to note every arising citta, every arising consciousness. Gradually, consciousness becomes purified. And the last one is Dhammanupassana. That Dhamma is difficult to translate. Dhamma means different things in different contexts. So we cannot translate the word Dhamma with just one English word. If we do, we will be wrong. So here, Dhamma simply means the objects that are the 5 mental hindrances. Kamicchanda, sensual desire, Pyavara, anger, etc. And Dhamma simply means the objects that are the 5 aggregates, the 12 visas, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths. They are called Dhamma in this discourse. So we cannot translate these words. Mostly it is translated as mind object or mental object. But each of these translations is not satisfactory. So it is better to keep the word Dhamma untranslated to avoid confusion. Dwelling on Dhamma objects, if you concentrate on anger, then you are doing contemplation on the Dhamma. Here, Dhamma does not mean the teaching or discourse or other things. If you see something and you are mindful of seeing, and then you are doing Dhamma objects contemplation. If you're mindful of hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, then you are doing Dhamma objects contemplation. So the Dhamma objects contemplation is very wide and includes mental hindrances, aggregates, bases, factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths. If we translate Dhamma as mind object, and we take it to mean mind as object, then some objects that fall under this contemplation are not mind. If we translate Dhamma as mental objects, then everything is objects of mind. Body is also objects of mind. Since we cannot get a satisfactory and adequate translation, it is better to leave Dhamma untranslated. So yogi practice these 4 foundations of mindfulness at random. And so when yogi are really practicing, do not try to find out which one you are doing. there is a distraction. As the practitioner of Vipassana, yogi have to take what is there at the present moment. Do not try to find out whether it is the body or the feeling or the consciousness or the Dhamma. Whatever there is, yogi's duty is to be mindful of that object immediately. So you notice, you observe and you try to mindful of that arising object, and then you capture the reality, and you do not have the lobha and dosa, greed and anger regarding that object. So in order not to have lobha and dosa, greed and anger, yogi have to be mindful. Yogi have no time to find out whether it is consciousness or Dhamma or other things. When you practice Vipassana meditation, you are observing the 5 aggregates, you are practicing all these 4 foundations of mindfulness as they come along. So long as yogi are mindful of the objects at the present moment, you are doing fine, your meditation is good. What is not good is when you are carried away by your thoughts and you forget about meditation for some seconds or maybe some minutes. It is not good. But as long as you are mindful, you are doing the right things, your meditation is going well. Sometimes yogi think that if they do not concentrate on the main object, if they do not concentrate on the primary object, they are not doing meditation. Sometimes they think, oh, we have spent time, we have wasted time noting the mind going here and there. And we do not have much time to concentrate on the main object. They may think. Whether you are aware of the main object or the secondary objects, so long as you are mindful at the moment, at the presently arising object, you are doing fine. So you are meditating and practicing Vipassana. What is important in Vipassana meditation is first to be mindful of the object at the present moment. Sometimes you may miss to be mindful, and then by becoming aware that you have missed, that missing also becomes the objects of meditation. So you have to note, you have to say to yourself, missing, or forgetting. And immediately capture that mental state. missing or forgetting before you go back to the home object. So there should be mindfulness always, mindfulness here and mindfulness there. And if you can keep mindfulness intense, then yogi will make rapid progress. And yogi will begin to see the true nature of Namarupa. Mind and matter. That is, yogi will begin to see the Namarupa, mind and matter arising and disappearing. When you see the arising and disappearing, yogi also see that they are impermanent. When you see they are impermanent, you also see their suffering nature and also the non-soul nature. And you also see you have no control over these phenomena. And you see that they arise and disappear as their own free will. So when you see them, you are set to see the three characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. Seeing of these three characteristics of all conditioned phenomena is the essence of vipassana. If you practice vipassana, you must see these three characteristics, because vipassana means see in different ways. See in different ways means seeing in the light of impermanence, seeing the light of suffering, as seeing in the light of non-soul. What is important in vipassana is to see these three characteristics, and in order to see these three characteristics, we need to observe, we need to watch, and we need to pay attention to the presently arising object continuously. In order to pay attention to the present object, we need to make effort. Without effort, nothing worthwhile can be achieved. This is why Buddha said, Atapi, Sampajano, Satima, ardent, clearly comprehending and mindful. So when we can fulfill these conditions, being ardent, clearly comprehending and mindful, and have concentration, we will be able to overcome kilesa, lobha and dosa, greed and anger, etc., regarding the object we observe. So according to Silavanta Sutta, yogi observe the 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanence, suffering, as disease, as tumor, as death, as misery, as affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, and as non-self. So we need to see the objects, and we need to observe that these objects is nothing to be clung to, nothing to be attached to, because now yogi have seen that it is impermanent and so on. Only when yogi see its transitory nature, yogi want to get away from something. That is why it is so important that we must first see the three characteristics in order to reach the stage of dispassion towards the five aggregates. And Venerable Sariputra said, if a virtuous bhikkhu see the five aggregates of clinging as impermanence, suffering and non-self and so on, there is the possibility that he may reach the stage of stream entry and become a Sotapanna. What is meant by stream entry? Pali was Sotapatti. It is made up of two parts, Sota and Apatti. The word Sota does not really mean stream. It means the current in the river or the flow of water. And Apatti means fast reaching. So Sotapatti means fast reaching the current. When anything gets into the current of a water, it is sure to reach the ocean. In the same way, when yogi gets into the current of the noble path, you are sure to reach nirvana. Once a yogi becomes a sotapanna, there is no turning back. You will progress nearer and nearer to nirvana, and within a maximum of 7 lives, you will reach it. Stream entry, Sotapatti, means getting into the current for the first time. And when does the person get into the stream or current? He gets into it for the first time when his practice of vipassana has become mature. When his practice of vipassana has become complete, when he attains enlightenment for the first time. At that moment, what happens? At the moment there arise is the arising in his mind a type of consciousness, Megacita, path consciousness, yogi never in your life has experienced before. And as this consciousness arises at the end of your vipassana practice, it must be preceded by vipassana consciousness or vipassana thought moments. When that consciousness, which is called path consciousness arises, it takes Nibbana as its object. That means it plunges into the cessation of all suffering. So in taking Nibbana as object, at the same time, it eradicates mental defilements. There are 4 stages of enlightenment, and at each stage, a mental defilement is eradicated. When path consciousness arises, Megacita arises, it is accompanied by mental factors. There are said to be 36 mental factors arising with that consciousness. Among them, 8 are most important. You know the 8 factors. Eight factors of path. They are right understanding, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So they are the mental factors that arise simultaneously with path consciousness. The first one, samadhi, right understanding means knowledge or wisdom. It is this understanding that actually eradicates the mental defilements. According to Theravada teaching, enlightenment means the arising of the path consciousness, the arising of megacita, together with mental factors. That consciousness and mental factors take Nibbana as object, and at the same time eradicate mental defilements. That is what we call enlightenment. When you first reach this current, you are called a Sotapanna in Pali. So it is translated as stream winner or stream enterer or stream entrant. When you reach this stage of Sotapanna, you are no longer a worldling, you are no longer a Puthujjana or ordinary person. On entering into the current, yogi becomes a noble person, Ariya. Having reached the stage of Sotapanna, you are said to eradicate some of the mental defilements. However, it really is samadhi, right understanding, that eradicates kilesa, defilements, not the person. So we will just say that some mental defilements are eradicated at the first moment of Sotapatti, the first moment of enlightenment. Eradicated means that mental defilements are completely uprooted and cannot arise in the mind again. So it is total destruction of those particular mental defilements. A Sotapanna also eradicates three kinds of sanyojana, three kinds of fetters, which are three kinds of mental defilements. One is Sakaya Ditti, wrong view about the body or heavy as self. The second is doubt, Vijigaccha, about the Buddha, the Dharma and Sangha and the training. The third is adherent to rites and rituals. These are the three factors, three sanyojana, eradicated at the moment of Sotapatti Mega. In the Yadana Sutta, it mentions Sahavisa Dasana Sambadaya Tyasu Dhammajita Bhavandi Sakaya Deti Vichikechi Tenja Sila Badan Wabi Yadati Genji. It is from Yadana Sutta. So it means with the attainment of first path, Sotapatti Mega, three states. Number one, Sakaya Ditti, self-illusion. Number two, Vijigaccha, doubt. Number three, Silabhada Paramasa, that is belief in wrong habits and practices as a way to purification. These three sanyojana fetters are abundant in Sotapanna. Also, Sotapanna abandons some other kilesa, mental defilements. So it is from Yadana Sutta. So even before reaching enlightenment for the first time, when you are practicing vipassana, you are able to abandon the wrong view about the body or having a self. However, your abandonment at that time is momentary and incomplete. But at the moment of your enlightenment, you completely eradicate the notion of existence of self, and it does not arise in your mind again. When you become a Sotapanna, you have unshakable faith in the Buddha, unshakable faith in the Dhamma, unshakable faith in the Sangha. Since you have realized the Dhamma yourself and have reached this stage through the teaching of the Buddha, you know that the Buddha is a genuine teacher, having himself attained enlightenment and taught the way to reach it. So Sotapanna has unshakable faith and confidence in the Buddha. And Sotapanna also has unshakable faith in the Dhamma, which here means the practice by which he has reached the stage of Sotapanna. And so yogi has complete faith that this practice will lead to the eradications of mental defilements and to the realization of nirvana. A yogi also gains unshakable faith in the Sangha, the community of the Buddha's noble disciples, who, following the Buddha's advice, practice meditation and reach enlightenment. Sotapanna can now identify himself with these noble disciples of the Buddha. Having gained unshakable faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, you also strengthen your faith in the practice. Before becoming a Sotapanna, yogi may have had doubts about whether yogi was really doing the right thing or whether the practice would really lead to the realizations of nirvana. But now that yogi has reached Sotapatti himself and has achieved the result himself, yogi have no more doubts. Yogi has eradicated any previous doubts about the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha and the practice. So one who has reached the stage of enlightenment knows that no other practice is the correct path to realize Nibbana. If anybody should tell a Sotapanna that inflicting pain on oneself, acting like a dog, or behaving like a cow, or very strange practice can lead to attainment of Nibbana, Sotapanna will not believe. He will not believe it. Sotapanna knows through his own experience that any practice that does not include the Eightfold Path is the wrong path. Because yogi practice the Eightfold Path and Vipassana and has reached this stage of enlightenment, yogi knows that it is the right path. A yogi knows that any practice that does not include the Eightfold Path or the Eight Factors cannot lead to the eradication of mental defilements. If somebody were to approach and tell Sotapanna that just by giving dana alone you can reach enlightenment, he would say no, dana cannot alone can reach enlightenment. And somebody may tell him just by practicing sila alone you can reach enlightenment. He would say no. Sotapanna will say dana, charity is good, but by charity you acquire merits. You can share your merits with other beings and receive the result of it in the future. But to reach Nirvana, charity, dana is not enough. Charity is only for supporting factors. So because of your charity, dana in the previous life, now you become a human being and you have very good understanding to practice vipassana meditation because you have done dana, charity in the past. As Sotapanna knows, even sila is not enough. Although we need to have pure sila, pure moral precepts when we practice meditation, but sila alone will not lead to enlightenment. All of this Sotapanna knows through his own experience. So he will not adhere to any practices that do not involve the 8 factors of the path. So in brief, Sotapanna eradicates wrong view, doubts, and adherence to rites and rituals. But Sotapanna abandons more. There are other mental defilements such as greed, hatred, delusion, and so on. For our purpose here, we must understand that mental defilements are of 2 kinds. The first kind is serious enough to drag us down to the 4 states of misery. That is apaya gamaniya kilesa, defilements. Serious enough to drag us down to the 4 states of misery. And second and lesser kind does not lead to those states. Although greed, hatred, and delusion belong to the first category of mental defilements, a Sotapanna is able to eradicate them. He still has greed, hatred, and delusion, but they are not strong enough or bad enough to cause Sotapanna to fall to the 4 states of misery. So it is not only 3 factors, 3 sanyojana that he eradicates, but also the power of mental defilements that could otherwise drag him down to the 4 states of misery. So whatever mental defilements remain in the Sotapanna are too weak to send him to the states of misery. A Sotapanna is endowed with the 4 qualities: unshakable faith in the Buddha, unshakable faith in the Dhamma, unshakable faith in the Sangha, and very pure sila. Of these 4, the first 3 have already you understand. It is very important that you learn about the last one, the sila of Sotapanna. So it is said that Sotapanna is endowed with sila, moral purity, that is dear to the noble ones, Ariya, and valued by the noble ones. This means that your sila, your moral precepts is very pure, and you have not broken the 5 precepts. You keep precepts unbroken in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. And you have never broken 2 or 3 consecutively. So you keep the 5 precepts intact and very pure without breaking any of them. This we should understand. The text say that when the Sotapanna dies and is reborn as a human being in the next life, he is observant of the 5 precepts is carried to next life. His observant is stay there. Even as a child, yogi will not kill any living beings. So as Sotapanna is very pure in keeping the 5 moral precepts that all of you are familiar with: abstention from killing, stealing, sexual misconducts, daily lies, and intoxicants. Nowadays, there are people who claim to be Sotapannas, and it's very difficult to know whether they really Sotapanna or not, because it is their own experience. We cannot go into their minds and find out whether they are really Sotapannas. But there are ways to investigate such a person and find out. We can check his observance of the 5 precepts. If he keeps them really intact and does not break any of them, he or she may be a Sotapanna. But if we see him not conforming the rules of Sila, if we see him drinking or if he tells lies, we can decide that he is not a Sotapanna. According to the commentaries, a Sotapanna does not break any of the 5 precepts. So Sotapanna does not drink. Even if she mix alcohol with water and give it to him, it is said that only the water will go down his throat, but not the alcohol. So there are some people who claim to be Sotapannas, but they may still drink and do other unwholesome things. So we may consider, we must consider. And some people will say, I'm a Sotapanna and I can do these things. I'm above getting an offense for doing this. So he say he can kill or he can steal and so on. So we must consider the kinds of people. If we believe such kinds of people, we very deluded. So being a Sotapanna does not mean he or she is protected from going to hell and can do anything he likes. If he were capable of doing something that would take him to the 4 woeful states, he would not be a Sotapanna and would be reborn 4 woeful states, not good realm. So being a Sotapanna does not mean that he can do anything he likes and be protected from going to hell. For a Sotapanna, the doors of the 4 woeful states are closed. That means he will not be reborn in the 4 states of misery, He will not be reborn in hell. He will not be reborn in the animal kingdom. And he will not be reborn in the hungry ghost or a Sura ghost. He is not reborn in the four woeful states simply because his purity of sila protect him. So sila guarantee. If you observe sila, sila will protect you. Sila will protect you not to go down to the four woeful states. So if he is not reborn in four woeful states simply because of your purity of sila protect you and render you unable to perform any unwholesome karma, and you do nothing that would cause you to go for woeful states. This we must clearly understand. We will continue some blessing of the Sotapanna. Next week, we have to stop our discourse for today by practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at these six senses continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future. So